This week in Organic, episode number 1.
This week's in Organic, live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Broadcasting live from London, welcome to This Week in Organic, the weekly show that debates the ramifications of the latest SEO and content marketing news. Sign up to watch the next show live at thisweekinorganic.com. All right, hello and welcome. I'm David Bain. Each week I'm going to be joined by knowledgeable, opinionated, loud folks to discuss the latest happenings in anything that impacts organic traffic. Now, here's the... Now, today, the very first show, we're going to have challenges. It's live. That's the fantastic thing about doing live broadcasting. And of course, we'd love for you to be involved as well, dear viewer. So just use the hashtag TWIO on Twitter. That's TWIO. And if you're watching live, your thoughts will magically appear on the chat box to my left-hand side. So let's find out more about today's guests. So where they're from and what caught their attention this week. So starting off with Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Vowles from Suso Digital in London. I guess one of the main things that's caught my eyes this week is the kind of fluctuations in the local search results, which is kind of a result of the Google Map bomb that kind of came out a few weeks ago. I thought that was quite interesting, especially what are they going to do to kind of stop it? Because obviously it's quite embarrassing for Google to have that crop up.
Okay, and how about Alan?
So I'm Alan Morty. I'm from Three Ventures. I'm the only American on this, so make me the guinea pig. But I'm pretty interested in the Google says the near me search traffic has doubled. I think that's going to impact a lot of local search, and in the future, I think that local, especially online, is a big thing for businesses, especially small businesses.
Okay, and just to make it confusing with two Marks on the call, Mark A, first in the alphabet.
Hello, yeah, it's Mark Asquith from DMSQD, and the thing that caught my eye this week isn't necessarily related directly to digital marketing, but I think it is interesting for content marketers, and that's Apple's acquisition today, I think, of Mateo, the German augmented reality company. I think there's a heck of a lot of scope for augmented reality and content, so that's piqued my interest.
And last but not least, Mark P.
Hi, I'm Mark Pack. I'm Associate Director here in London for Blue Rubicon, where we specialise in reputation management. And I guess the thing that most caught my eye, I was sort of flicking through some stories on Search Engine Land and Search Engine Watch and so on earlier today, was just how familiar they are. So things like the importance of speed, the importance of mobile, the questions about what's happening with reviews. What it really struck me is I think sometimes people get very focused on the technicalities of the latest change, but there are some really underlying core principles that seem to come back again and again with all the different stories that come up.
Okay, so back to Adam. Adam, you touched on a point saying that obviously Google had updated their local search algorithm recently because they had some challenges over the last week. Do you want to summarise the kind of challenges that they faced?
Well, it's people kind of manipulating the local maps with kind of obscenities that kind of came out, and it was quite embarrassing for them really to have that show up in the search results. So we're kind of yet to see the kind of extent to how things have changed. We've got to kind of look at it, but obviously things like this are incredibly embarrassing for them to kind of deal with. Because it doesn't look favourably on them at all. So it's going to be quite interesting to see the kind of changes that they're going to implement to kind of stop this happening in the future. Obviously, there was the Google bomb that happened a good few years ago with the White House. I think it was like the miserable failure where people searched it in for, I think it was Bush, I think it was. So they kind of managed to quash that, but then this is kind of a new strain of that which has come out.
And a lot of this is obviously because people can also add their own reviews to things. Do you think there's any issue with Google continuing to offer completely public access to actually being able to write reviews at the bottom of these kind of listings and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. The issue is how do you stop people manipulating it? Do they kind of put processes in place to kind of stop people forcing these kind of reviews through, or how do you monitor it really?
Okay, anyone get any solutions for that?
I don't necessarily know if I have a solution, but I know Google's the leader in machine learning. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have a fix for this, but it causes another blunder. It's the whole artificial intelligence issue or machine learning issue. And you implement an algorithm, it may fix this problem, but it'll probably cause an additional byproduct that could be a problem, just like this one is.
Yeah, I probably agree with that as well.
I mean, the challenge is that Google have got so much going on with things in their algorithm that they're looking to move towards machine learning, and a lot of engineers don't even know what fixes are going to result in different issues, obviously, moving forward as well. So watch the space, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so topic number 2, that was...
the Google says the near me search has doubled. We at Three Ventures, we're a digital marketing agency. We do a lot with analytics and search. And while I don't think this is going to impact, enterprises who don't have many retail stores, I definitely think this impacts small businesses a bunch. The near me search has doubled. Right? What I think that really means is that Google is going to try to take this as an opportunity in the future to implement some form of new ads. I mean, you got to remember something. Google's not necessarily a search engine. Google's an advertising company with a search engine. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you see Google really try to exploit, the really local near me searches with a new type of ad format, or again, a change into the amount of results in a SERP. We've seen many different SERPs over the last couple of years. So I wouldn't be surprised if this, much like they had a mobile get-in, I mean, something like a local get-in, a complete rework of local. I wouldn't be surprised.
Will some SEOs move towards including the term near me on a page to hope to rank higher for that, or is that old-fashioned SEO and dead and not relevant?
I don't think that's old-fashioned SEO. I mean, in the paid search world, that works. I mean, people don't understand when you put qualifiers in front of search queries, like how to or near me. Those types of things work. They could be prefixes or suffixes, and they usually have high conversion rates. What I would look out for, is really what's going to be the impact, for the SEO. On mobile, you really have one screen load. I mean, not too many people swipe down. They're usually calling the first couple of results. Like I have iPhone 6 Plus, I get 5 results, right? Are we going to be able to see an organic result, much like has been talked about the last 5 years with mobile, on search? That's the real question. I don't think it is.
So what other aspects of SEO are going to positively impact those kind of listings? Are we talking about things like microdata?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that SEOs will always be creative. SEOs are this, I have this great strategy, to be found in search, but also to be found in crafty, nifty ways in search. I think that you'll see really a fight back from SEOs, whether it be with Google or having to do something with, Bing, with Siri or Yelp. I think that SEOs will expand just beyond a typical, big sort of robust search in Google, Bing, Yahoo. I think they'll bring in other things as well, like Yelp and any sort of review sites. I mean, I think that those will also be key. And I know that goes beyond the scope of SEOs, but I just think as a local business, I mean, that's going to be the new role for anybody who's looking to get that really organic-esque traffic, regardless of where it comes from, as long as it's not paid.
I think that review point is absolutely crucial, because the classic example of where there's near-me searches is really useful is if you're looking for something like a cafe. And whether a cafe is any good at doing websites and meta tags and link build, is the cafe any good at doing coffee? Is it any good at doing food? That's what really matters. So I think just as SEO people will be looking for the clever technical bits to pull, search engines will be trying to move on to relying much more heavily on things like reviews, which are actually about the substance of the product rather than the marketing that's around it.
So Mark,
I definitely agree.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, carry on, Alan.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just going to say, I mean, not to pimp what Mark does, but Mark's spot on. That's a very big thing, and he hits on a key point. They're great at making coffee. Well, at least we hope they are. We're supposed to be great at SEO.
Yep.
That's the thing.
Mm.
I was just going to ask Mark Asquith actually, because Mark, you run a design agency in the north of England. Your physical address. Are there many things that you are doing differently now for local SEO to get people to find your business compared with what you were doing a year or two ago, or is it pretty much not really much changed in terms of you as marketing your own business?
It's an interesting question, actually, Dave, because we do less on the actual physical SEO side of things, and we do more around, okay, what happens when people get to the site? And what we're tending to see is that whether we're looking at heat maps or whether we're looking at journeys throughout a website, we're seeing that people's attention spans are really, really struggling. People are just bouncing around and they're really not taking anything in. So what we're trying to do is work with more comprehensive SEOs and say, well, actually, what can we do when people get on site? And I think that will become more and more important, especially as local kicks in much more, because subjectivity will play a much greater part. Opinions will form, and you will ask your peers much more readily than you perhaps would do now about certain things. So from our perspective, it's very much around, okay, how can we take this brand and elevate it? It's all right getting the traffic in, but actually, how can we keep that traffic and start to convert it? And I think that end of the process is something that people are really starting to worry about a little bit. They're not. They've never, as a small bricks and mortar business, a lot of the time they've just not had to deal with that. But because of this prominence, because of the idea that Google is now serving this local info much more readily, people are, even at what we term the lower level, the real bricks and mortar cafes, as you say, they're really starting to take notice of that. So I think that's the part that we tend to play in that. And I think people are starting to fret about that, and it's certainly something that comes through our door a little bit more.
So, Mark, a quick question for you and a follow-up is, we do a lot of work here with website performance management and application performance management, doing basically exactly what you've talked about with more of a mathematical model, so A/B testing, multivariate testing. That gets expensive. There's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of regression analysis with business analysts. How do we, as service providers, offer realistic solutions to help these small businesses where it's fair for us and it's also fair for them? I mean, do you have an idea on that? I mean, that's something we've been talking about here, and we haven't been able to come up with anything good yet that's fair for both sides.
That's a really cracking question. Really, really good question. It's something that when you look at the design side of things, you look at the sort of the holistic marketing side of things, that's what has prohibited small business, certainly the bricks and mortar side, from really embracing that, because frankly, like you say, it's expensive for them to do it properly, and the agencies that do it properly aren't interested in their budget because it's just not there. So what we are doing now internally is just looking at, well, what solutions are already out there that get us almost there, and all we have to do is apply our own knowledge onto those platforms. So things like Hotjar, David over at Hotjar, which I'm a massive advocate of, provides really cost-effective heat mapping, split testing, user journey analysis, really, really fantastic stuff. And then kind of obvious things that are out there already that people perhaps just don't use to their full potential. So things like lead pages, we use lead pages so much just to do the split testing, just to take landing pages that are already kind of proven to convert or theoretically convert. So for me, it's about taking the tools that are out there already, applying our layer of knowledge, and then applying that in a way that helps with whatever budget a small business or a bricks and mortar business has. I think that kind of thing is changing. I think people are looking for a solution, but they're certainly more open to agencies like us saying, well, listen, here's the software we're going to use. It's not this behind the scenes background, you can't know about it. This is what we're going to use. This is what we're going to use. Here's what we expect from you, and here's what we'll bring to the table. And that can be a really fruitful relationship, because you might only need to spend a day a month with someone versus 2 weeks per month, which is fantastic for everyone. So yeah, that would be my first thought on that.
All right. Well, something else that Google's been up to over the last year or so is providing direct answers to queries rather than actually people browsing through SERP results. It's been possibly more difficult to actually get traffic from SERPs because of Google just providing that direct answer there. And now with Google Now, they're providing a lot of those direct answers within there as well. Is that going to be an issue for SEOs moving forward? Is it going to be a case of having to get the #1 result for a very specific query that people ask for, and further results down are just not going to matter so much now, and #1 is going to be more important in the future? Who's got some thoughts on that?
You know, I think for really basic stuff, math operations, definitions, acronyms, those types of things, I think it's fine. When they try to answer a tough problem, I'm like, there's no way you can answer that in a sentence. Like I've literally typed in, a 13 keyword search query. That's like a multi-process, step, or it's a multi-process question, right, to get the answer. And they try to tell me in a knowledge graph the answer. And I'm like, no way. Then I go click through the website and it has nothing to do with it. So I think that they need to, they need to understand what they can answer quickly and what they can't answer quickly. I think that's what matters, in my opinion.
Do you think they're likely to do that, or are they moving in the wrong direction?
As close as we are to Google, I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you.
Because obviously it's down to user experience as well, and if people start leaving Google or getting dissatisfied with the results that are produced on Google, then I guess they may make decisions based on that. But obviously, based upon the current usage of Google, you're talking about 88% of people around the world roughly using Google for search. Not quite so high in the States. Bing have got about 12% in the States and about 7% in the UK. So is it likely, do you think, that people might move on to other search engines, or do you think Google are still delivering a vastly superior search experience compared with the alternatives out there?
I think we touched on this one time, David, and that was in a podcast we did together. Google tests everything. And what happens is when you test everything, sure, you can get statistically relevant results, but you can't get how somebody feels. There's no way you can ever get that. And so I think that that's one of the downfalls of Google, is they like to test everything, and this is a case in which they like to test the knowledge graph, implementing it, what metrics they're using to determine whether or not this is relevant to the user, a mobile user, desktop user, tablet user. If any of those are wrong, all their data is bad. And so what I think Google sometimes leaves out is the experience. And that's what we're talking about here today, is how really annoying it is. And so the question that in my head is will we see a culture shift at Google in the way that they do things? And I think no. And the people who don't like that, you're absolutely right. They're going to go to a different platform.
I mean, Google are a client of ours at work, so you might expect me to be praising them. But I think one thing that's worth bearing in mind about those knowledge graph search results is just the sheer cleanness of them. You get, when it comes up right, it gives you the answer without any annoying ads, without any pop-ups, without any of all the other things that you often get around the information that you're after when you click through. And I think actually there's a key lesson there, not just in terms of SEO, but also in terms of web design, that giving the answer quickly, clearly, and directly has so much going for it. And too many sites, I think, still the style of their web design is messy, crowded, getting between you and the information.
Yeah, I'll totally pick up on that and entirely agree with that completely, Mark. It's certainly a trend that we're seeing. So the clients that we tend to work with are people that, they tend to fall into one of two camps: people that love the crowded and still think that's the way to go, and people that understand that it's perhaps not the way to go. And the former crowd, the people that do believe that crowded is fine, are really now starting to come around to the idea that we don't have to tell people everything. We just have to tell them what we believe they want to know based on the analytics and so on and so forth. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think there's also a big thing around the near me. We're seeing a lot of people really enjoying that. It comes up in discussion with councils. We work with a lot of local authorities, and some of their particular information, when is my bin going to be emptied? You know, even little things like that are starting to crop up. And they love the idea of it. They love the idea, but they just don't know how to manage it. And I think that's a bit of a challenge for people as well.
Adam, have you got any concerns about the direct answers you're seeing in Google search results and them actually taking potentially traffic away from maybe clients that you might service?
No, I just think that it's such kind of a minimalist kind of what is 1 + 1 answers, rather than if you're not going to ask it, like, you know, what is the theory of relativity, and get a decent answer out of it. So there's always going to be places for like the longer, more detailed posts in there. I can only see them kind of increasing it more as they kind of want to keep people in Google, but I'm not too bothered about it really. For user experience point of view, from their perspective, it's great because people stay in Google. But people kind of want a bit more information these days than just kind of a 1 sentence, 2 sentence kind of aspect of it. I think they want something a bit more meatier, and they want to kind of find out more about stuff. So I'm not really too fussed about them kind of implementing that a bit more.
Okay. So some interesting things to think about there. You've obviously got a commercial interest there in Google as well, and more recently they've tested things like I believe buy now buttons within the paid search results, or intending on doing so. Is anyone concerned about commercial terms staying within the Google tent, as it were, not getting out there and other companies having an opportunity to actually drive traffic towards purchasing certain products? Or do you think that Google will still stay independent enough not to actually retain that commercial purchase type traffic just for itself?
I think it's going to try and retain all the purchase traffic for itself. It is a advertising agency at heart, really. I mean, its purpose is to sell ads. It does that through providing users with the best search experience, but primarily it's just trying to sell ads. So I would think that the push on kind of local advertising is just going to get more and more, especially with like the smaller screens on phones. This is kind of swamp up that kind of main band and just try and keep all that traffic for itself.
It's interesting with mobile phones. Obviously, certain industries have more traffic through mobile users, be it mobile phones or tablets. I mean, here at Analytics SEO, about 90% or something like that of our traffic is still through desktop computer. And I think that's pretty unusual, but obviously it's the type of user, it's a professional during the day that's using our website, but the majority of users are from other sites or perhaps on a mobile, or perhaps if they're buying some kind of gift personally, maybe they're browsing their tablet, their mobile device on the way home as well. Is anyone seeing definitely the first couple of results, the ones that are clicked on in terms of purchase behavior now, or is there still a willingness to scroll a lot and actually view the rest of the content out there? He's got a dog in the background.
Yeah, it's not my dog. You know, I think that I think I'm looking at my phone here, you know, and all the data that we have across all sites and apps that we work with and we do a lot of analytics consulting on. Not a lot of people get past the initial screen load. I mean, not many people are scrolling down. I mean, I'm talking about, you know, B2B, B2C, e-commerce clients. We don't do a lot in the publishing, so I don't know too much about publishing. That could be definitely a different story, but it's a lot of the trends like you're seeing, David. I think if it has anything to do with business to business, I think that it's going to be incredibly slow in the shift of really making mobile work. I think you have to have mobile be the conversion device. You know, mobile has to be the get the information I'm looking for device, because I'm a working professional and I need it quickly and I need a quick way to contact you. The hard sell and the final sell really is done still primarily on desktop and even realistically over the phone, especially for businesses. E-commerce is slightly different. You know, e-commerce for us, mobile does well in terms of the conversion rate if you really slim down the content. And again, not a lot of people are going, beyond that initial screen load. So I mean, I think Amazon is a prime example here. When you buy something on Amazon, you add it to your cart, they ask you to check out. They give it to you. You can one-step purchase, through the Amazon app. Those are the types of things that are really the big wins on mobile for e-commerce that we see. But again, I don't do too much on the publishing side, so that's my 2 cents.
So does that mean that apps are going to become much more important in the future?
Oh, I definitely think apps are already important.
Yeah.
It's just we're not like a uber creative agency. We're an analytics and we're an advertising agency. For us, the biggest thing is how do we leverage mobile to really help the business goals that are leading to whatever the quarterly business objectives or yearly business objectives are. I think that's the biggest thing, is mobile is not a win solution. You really have to put a lot of thought and effort into mobile and what your users are really looking for when they're interacting with your brand online, and then making sure that what's really important is in that app and they can easily access it.
Interesting thoughts. Okay, well, coming up, we're going to be talking more about things like the Twitter, Google deal, and also Facebook. Although they're serving 4 billion video views every day, a Google execs recently questioned the quality of those views. So a lot to think about there.
You're listening to This Week in Organic, live from London, on thisweekinorganic.com.
I love the reactions there. But first of all, I'd like to mention 2 people. Firstly, Manish Karia from shadi.com. I hope that's the right pronunciation. Shadi is actually Hindi for the translation of wedding marriage. So, and also David Hassel from dlhmarketing.co.uk. Both of them shared what we do on social, and if you'd like a mention next time as well, then just follow instructions after you actually sign up for the live show at thisweekinorganic.com, and you'll get a mention during the show. So that was a quick interlude there. But back to the discussion. So I mentioned just a second ago there that the Google Twitter deal has gone live, and we're starting to see things like Twitter results within Google there as well. So what kind of implication is that going to have for Google search results? Are we more likely to actually use Google, and perhaps the optimization of tweets? Is that going to exist? Are we going to do things like adding more hashtags, or even including a keyword phrase within a tweet to try and actually appear high in a Google search result? Anyone get any thoughts about that?
I'll sort of dive in, I think, on the, and this is just personal opinion, it's not backed by any data, but I really hope that we don't start optimizing tweets, because then Twitter just becomes a pointless tool. I think it's an interesting one. I think it's an interesting one for Twitter, because Twitter, that theoretically you would guess that they would benefit a little bit more just from the increased traffic. I'm not sure what the benefits are for Google. That's not too much my domain. I'm sure the other guys will have some thoughts on that one. But I think from a user's perspective, it will be very interesting, because it will allow opinion to flow through the search results for certain things. And I think that's going to be quite interesting, because again, in theory, I would assume that you're going to get a bit of a cross-section of tweets. You're not just going to get left or right tweets. You're going to get a relative cross-section, so you should be able to gauge, again, theoretically, the world's reaction to something from the search results. So that's pretty subjective opinionated answer, but yeah, that's my take on it.
Can you imagine doing some keyword research before writing a tweet?
No, I will never do that. I will stop using Twitter because I'm lazy.
I'm right there with you. I think that Twitter's got to remain what Twitter is, and that's it's not built to optimize for a search result. I mean, I think initially it'll probably start like that, and then I think if Google values the relationship or finds some sort of value in it, I think they'll continue to tap into Twitter data, with the with the world of big data, and I hate that quantifier of big. It's just so much data. How do we make sense of it? If there's any value in this to Google, I think they'll start taking a look at who follows you. What are the following for those people? How many people do they follow? They'll probably take into account some ratios. They'll probably take into account how long the profiles have been around. What they tweet about. I don't know if you've ever heard of Social Bro. But Social Bro is I want to say it's getting towards like a big data-esque platform for Twitter. And I think that if Google finds any value in Twitter, I think they'll start taking those other data points into account. But I think initially we are going to see a lot of people trying to game their tweets, and it could devalue the platform. And on the flip side, maybe Twitter cans the deal.
I mean, I think it's a good move for both of them, because if you think about how often these days, particularly news stories, the hook is something that happened on Twitter. There may be a story about a politician resigning from a post because of something they said on Twitter, or a company running into trouble because intern supposedly was let loose with the Twitter account password. So quite often when you're searching for information, you do want to be able to pull in information from Twitter. So I think it's good news for Google. It's also good news for Twitter, because Twitter has a search box at the moment and it does an okay job. But if you're really wanting to delve in, again, beyond just finding something that is very distinctive in terms of the language you can search for, does Twitter really want to have to completely replicate all of the skill and expertise that Google has built up? So I think it's good for both of them. When it comes to optimizing tweets, actually, what some people do already, and I'm sure more people will do in the future, will still very much apply in terms of optimizing tweets for the Twitter platform. Because if you get more retweets, you get more responses, you get more engagement on your tweets, that gets you to a bigger audience on Twitter. And I've no doubt that's one of the signals Google will also look at for what to promote in its search results. So I'm afraid, optimization is here to stay, I think, in tweets. So I don't know if we're going to have some culling of who's on Twitter as a result.
That's done.
Is everyone here on Twitter? Or using it actively? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What about Google Plus, for example? Is anyone using that as much as they are using Twitter?
I switched out Google Plus. I went to Quora.
Yeah, I did exactly the same thing as well.
Quora's cool, but Twitter's awesome. We're tech people. Don't we judge our self-worth based off our Twitter following?
Yeah. And it's almost embarrassing to have a large number of Google Plus followers. Yeah, I'm tempted to say, but I shouldn't really.
Because Google was one of your clients.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, it is quite a good example of how, we're using Google Hangouts. There are some bits that are really good, and quite often, when new platforms launch, they launch trying to tailor to a wide range of behaviors, but then find their real specialism in one or two particular areas.
So that's an interesting question that you bring up there, Mark. I want to bring a comparison here to LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's gone to garbage, especially with their groups, if they're not extremely locked down. I really like the communities on Google+, especially the Google communities. I think that those are very well put together and very well managed. I think that that's one of the gems of Google+, is their communities, because we had a lot of subject matter experts coming into those. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I just don't think it was different enough from what was out there already. It seemed to be like a mishmash of all the other ones put together. I think it was made really well, but it just didn't entice enough people to it, and without enough people as a social network, it just dies.
Yeah, I struggle to use any other community. I tend to be mostly on Twitter. I try to like Facebook and use Facebook, but I don't particularly like doing that. And Google+, I've probably used even less.
It's an interesting comparison to LinkedIn, because I think LinkedIn are certainly trying to push down the publishing platform route and just doing that really, really badly. So you kind of, if you take Google Plus out of the mix, where do you publish your content? How do you do it well? And I think Quora is a really, really cracking example of a place to migrate to. And I think we'll see more people doing that kind of thing. We're seeing quite a lot of people wanting to position themselves as experts. That whole idea that you can be a small business and move into being an expert in whatever field you want. And it seems that LinkedIn's trying to back onto that and people were using Google Plus, certainly around me, for that kind of thing. And then just, as you said, Mark, they just stopped doing it. So yeah, where do people go? It's an interesting problem.
Yeah, I mean, the LinkedIn question's a really good one, because LinkedIn used to do a relatively boring job really well of being a great way of looking up contacts and finding, who works where, who do you know, who can ask somebody else, etc. And did it brilliantly, but it was a clear niche, and I can quite understand their longer term thinking that we don't want to be stuck in a small niche like this. We want to do something bigger and more exciting and all of that. But you look at how LinkedIn has developed over the last year, and I mean, the real danger is they end up being so diluted, and they're no longer really good at anything, and you've got so much mush in there that it undermines what used to be their great selling point.
Yep, and I think that, Mark, you have a great point. About 6 months ago, a pretty confidential document was leaked from LinkedIn, and that was their roadmap for their product development. And one of their biggest things that they were really leveraging was they wanted to build in this massive B2B retargeting advertising platform, and essentially what they needed was a bunch of data points. And I think Publisher is that data point, or is one of the main data points with, hey, if somebody's interested, they view your profile, they go to your website, we've dropped our cookie on them, they've contacted you, whose content are they reading, what profiles are they looking at, are they leaving comments, are they liking, those types of things, are they sharing? And I think that they were trying to use those as additional data points in collusion with other data providers to be able to build out that platform. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out in the future too. But like you said, if you got bad inputs, you're definitely going to have bad outputs.
Yeah.
So can you see any other similar partnerships in the future that Google makes? Because obviously they're making this Google Twitter one. Would something like a Google LinkedIn one be even possible at some point in the future?
I doubt it. That's all business people. Twitter's, mainly consumers or people who get consumers that are in business. I mean, does Google want LinkedIn having any sort of input in their search results, or does Google want to control all of the business on Google? And I mean, I think that that's the question we have to ask, is do they want to let another business provider, or so to speak, be able to control some content on Google? And I don't think that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's intriguing, this particular deal that's going on. You try and figure out whether or not it's more beneficial for Google or more beneficial for Twitter, and you obviously never know Google's long-term strategy or plans as well, because in the past they even talked about Twitter, about some kind of purchase deal, and that didn't happen, and there was talk about perhaps Google having a look at how it worked and trying to replicate a similar kind of service within Google Plus, which didn't kind of really happen. What are Google's intentions for the future? Do you think Google wants to embrace social networking itself moving forward?
I think that I'll jump into that one, because that's an interesting question, and I don't know Google, closely, shall we say, but it strikes me as something that they've tried, and it feels like it's a bit of a crowded space. And Google being Google, as you say, being an advertising company, yeah, data is going to be king. And I hate that phrase, by the way. But data is kind of going to be king. And I think it just must really annoy them that Facebook holds all of that data. Twitter holds all of that data. And I think we'll see more fledgling partnerships, perhaps not with the LinkedIn of the world, but I think there will be some kind of cross stream of data from somewhere, because in my mind Google needs that to move forward, or at least diversify. Having said that, it already holds a heck of a lot of data, so does it need that? And that's perhaps a question for Alan and Adam, really. I don't know, does Google need that kind of data?
Yes.
Yeah.
Google definitely needs that type of data. Facebook across devices. Okay, so I got my iPhone, right? So I got my iPhone and my tablet and my computer. How does anybody know I'm Alan Morty on those? Well, the only way you know is if I log in. Well, who forces everybody to log in? That's the 900-pound gorilla in the room. Oh, Facebook. Sure, Google may, but I have to log into Google on my devices, on every single one of my devices, which a lot of people don't like to do. A lot of people don't know how much Facebook tracks. Google already has bad PR for how much stuff they track. I mean, if I went in, we could talk for another hour about things that I know that Facebook tracks. But you all get off Facebook. You know, the advertising is insane. If I told you what we could target, and so that's really the point. Google needs something that they can identify users with. The easiest thing to do that with is some sort of social platform. Now, whether they do that with Chrome will be a different story. I think if Google's going to do anything, it's going to be a social aspect on Chrome, because Chrome's really used on desktop. I don't know the statistics behind it. I know it's great on mobile phones. I know they own Android. I mean, if Google's going to do anything, I think they got to make a play with something social on Chrome.
It was I was having a look at the stats actually earlier on today on StatCounter, and Google Chrome is now used as a browser by 50% of users. So that's quite incredible. Obviously, it used to be years ago Internet Explorer that had that much control, but Google Chrome is just certainly taking over that and probably aggressively targeting even more users there as well. So it must have some future plans for that.
I mean, I think the big unknown, because social networking hasn't been around for that long, is just how well established are the big companies. I mean, we've seen people like MessageSpace, MySpace come and go, and people like Friendster and so on. But when you look at the grip that Google has on search, Facebook has on social networking, Twitter has on, it's more sort of instant sharing. There are some very fast-growing, new social networks, but they're all doing new things. So Instagram really fast-growing, but doing something different. Snapchat really fast-growing, but doing something different. And maybe it's just me not having quite enough imagination, but I suspect that the people who are now really big have got such a huge advantage. Your friends are already on there. They've already got data to help serve you the best results and so on. That I suspect the people who are big now are going to be big for an awfully long time to come.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that as well. It's always going to be something different that takes over, but I think they're quite cemented into the into the fabric of it now. So as more and more people come, it's all to do with where your friends are. You're not going to be on a social network on your own, really. So it's kind of, I think Google's kind of desperate for that social data. I think that's what it's absolutely hammering after, just because. It wasn't that long ago when there were people on clipboards standing on the roads getting your personal data off you, and now people just sign up for it and give it all away, and that stuff is worth an absolute fortune to an advertising company like Google. So I think it's absolutely desperate to get that information out of people.
But wouldn't that make a great startup, the social network where you're not allowed to interact with anyone else? It's just for the lonely introvert, the shy, lonely introvert, no distractions, nobody else, just yourself.
Or
that's an anti-social network.
So, David, that brings up a really interesting question. Okay, so much like we have the webinar here, basically segmented into 3 sections, right? You have the right side, you have the bottom side, you have where I see your face. And think about this if this was a search result. If where you're at here was a Google search, and the bottom part wasn't there, but the right part was integrated with Twitter, and we could tweet about news, or we could tweet about something on Chrome in our browser about something we're seeing, or maybe this is an overlay on a website. I mean, that would give Google a social piece, something that could interact with Chrome, and would make Twitter possibly something to seriously consider in terms of an acquisition. That would be really interesting, because I'm trying to think, if you were to integrate something with Chrome or something that was quick or real time, it'd have to be something similar to 140 characters.
Well, Alan, actually, it's funny you say that, because on the left-hand side of our screen at the moment, kind of within the live webinar experience, there is the Twitter widget with the TWIO hashtag. And David Hassel has just tweeted that Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest work well for his clients, and Google Plus doesn't figure at all at the moment. So Google Plus appears to have been a fad for many businesses to actually create pages on, maybe a couple of years ago, but businesses are more concerned about perhaps image social networks and video social networks now moving forward. Is Pinterest and Instagram something that you guys are looking into as well?
I think the visual side of things, certainly working much more on the design and content side of things, that is becoming massive, and I'm talking, it's been huge for a long time generally, but even the people that would have never thought about Instagram marketing we're starting to see an uptake of that. And you've only got to look at some of the things, some of the tools that are coming out to react to that. So you've got a guy putting things out like Canva, you know, and even Canva for Business now, and things like WordSwag on an iPhone and on an iPad. These little tools that kind of democratize design and allow people to create things that will just generate interest and generate attention across Pinterest, across Instagram, Snapchat, and so on. I think if you can give the tools to the people, the platforms will just boom, and people on the other side of it, the consumers, certainly the B2C side of things, that is just completely there for the taking. And the brands that are doing it well, are doing it well. But for everyone else, that's just a nascent marketing ground for people. So I think we're going to see a big boost in that kind of thing, absolutely.
I've been really impressed how quickly image recognition software is moving on. Yeah, there's been all the fun and games in Britain recently with lots of people loving sharing the little app that tries to work out how old you are from looking at a photo of you. But that's the sort of the fun gimmicky end of it. But the sort of technology that social media monitoring and digital monitoring services are beginning to roll out, initially in terms of being able to sift through millions of photos to find examples of brand logos appearing in them, is really quite impressive. So I suspect in a few years' time we'll be worrying about how to optimize the actual content of the images and the photos to try and play into those things. And the big advantage of images is, you know, when you're trying to get over an emotion or a feeling, you know, there's a reason images are so popular in other environments, and so being able to use those successfully online without feeling, oh, and I've also somehow might be hobbling myself from an SEO perspective, I think will be a really big boon for everyone.
Yeah, and you know, I got a little sales meeting on Monday, next week, and it's with a company that literally does this. They build what they call companion apps, and they're tools that augment social platforms. And I've seen, some of the stuff that they do, and I can't wait to see some of the data that they're going to send over today. But from what I've heard, just talking to them, they got a bunch of users. They got 12 apps that augment the use of social platforms, and I mean, they're good apps. Like, I'm thinking, like, why don't we use this? So I definitely agree with both of you, Mark. I mean, that's serious business coming up.
Exciting stuff.
So talking about images and videos, Facebook have said recently that they were serving 4 billion video views every day, and the Google ad chief, he said, he questioned how many of Facebook's video views were really engaged. Do you think that's fair criticism? Are Facebook video views not as good a commercial opportunity for people looking to advertise, or should Google and YouTube be really concerned about the amount of video views going on Facebook now?
I think that's just to dive in on certainly again on the content side of things. I think where Facebook struggles as a legitimate, certainly a B2B platform, is the breadth of its audience, the breadth of its users, because I'm on there, I'm on LinkedIn, and I use things differently. But I think where Facebook does well for me, certainly in the businesses that we run, if you can take a very segmented portion of friends or followers or whatever and stick them into a nice private closed group, the video within that certainly feels valuable, and any engagement within that certainly feels valuable. And I think that's a different issue to the generic Facebook, news stream videos and so on and so forth. So I think that question's actually, we need to look at the different types of people that are using and looking and engaging with those videos. I don't think that's a yes or a no answer, to be honest.
Has anyone experimented with trying to deliver Facebook video on behalf of clients?
Okay, so video works really well on Facebook. Like, the lowest cost, and we're literally talking fractions of a cent that we've got from a view standpoint with videos. One of the big things we've noticed, especially from performance for any advertising performance terms of ROI, or getting people to do a site, do not take people off Facebook. They do not like you to take people off Facebook. We don't have any data behind it, but go click on an ad and see how fast they load that ad site. Get that same URL, go load it in your mobile browser, and see how much faster it loads. I don't have any data because we can't tap into Facebook's app, but it's noticeably slower. And so one of the things that we've noticed is any sort of branded engagement retention, the videos work great. And I think that's because, one, it's very engaging, and two, it doesn't take anybody off Facebook's platform. And they also have the network to be able to serve videos. A lot of times, like the biggest fail in native advertisements right now is you'll see people using mobile video, and it takes terribly long to load. You know, I think Facebook will eventually get into being better with video, but as far as Google's remarks, of course, Google's going to say that, you know, their video metrics could be you know, a little off because they just hit the whole thing with, you know, viewability on display, and you know they have YouTube. So I think there's always going to be the battle between Facebook and Google, and I think his response was quantified. Facebook's still really young. Facebook said 2005 Google. And you know, that was, we could game search, we could game advertising, you could do really well with display, and I think that, you know, a lot of the same things that allowed us to exploit that in 2005 with Google are the same issues that Facebook has with their ability to not really be able to control the quality yet. I think that's going to be a big thing, you know, in the next decade with Facebook.
But is it still mainly about just consumer videos and fun videos on Facebook, or is there really a commercial opportunity there as well?
With omni-channel marketing, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I'm not interested in anything in business on Facebook, but that's my opinion. Consumer brands, products, we've seen do very well on Facebook. Business, not so hot. You know, but I don't know if that's going to change in the future. I don't know. But I know I go to Facebook to be with my group of friends, you know, that I travel around the country with. That's the only thing I use Facebook for. So I'm not a huge Facebook user.
Well, I think that just about takes us to the end of this week's show, because we're coming up 8 minutes to the hour mark. So I'd like to give everyone an opportunity just to think about maybe one takeaway for our watchers or our listeners to actually think about, perhaps over the weekend. If you, I'll go round all four of you just now. So just time for a single takeaway, and then some sharing of find out more details from all of you. So starting off with Adam.
Well, I guess kind of the most important thing is focus on mobile for me. I think that's the area that's going to grow the most. So make sure your site is purely optimized for mobile, the best user experience, and just focus on kind of local and mobile.
Okay, great stuff. And how about Alan?
You know, tacking on to that, it all starts with your website or application first. So, you know, understanding what users want, getting that into your website, getting that into your application, making sure the experience is flawless. I mean, just to tack on. I think that's very important.
And where can we find you as well? What's your website address?
That's 3ventures.com. So THREE ventures.com.
Brilliant. Okay, I don't think we covered that with you, Adam. What's your site? Adam, would you like to share your website address?
I think he did. I think he's silent.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Let's.
Can you hear me now?
I can indeed, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I think the connection, you froze for a second. It's Suso Digital, so SUSOdigital.com.
Okay, great stuff. Mark Asquith, what's your final thought for the day, and what's your website address?
Again, just building on what the other chaps have said, really, and that is, don't rush it. Everyone dives onto new tactics, and they don't really think about it sometimes. So don't rush it. Don't feel like you've got to be telling your mates down the pub that you're doing SEO, you're doing whatever you're doing, local and mobile. Plan it, strategize it, get some objectives. That's got to be the biggest one. And make sure you plan and you think and you measure. Really obvious, but people forget to do that. And you can catch it with me at dmsqd.com.
Great stuff. And last but not least, Mr. Pack.
I guess the takeaway I would add is remembering the importance not just of optimizing, but optimizing for the right audience. It's very tempting to think, you know, more equals better, but actually if you've got loads of teenage Americans coming to your site and you're actually a Edinburgh-based chemical industry supplier to business, might look nice on the graphs, but doesn't really help the business. And you can find out more about me either on Twitter at MarkPack, MarkPack, or our web address here at work is bluerubicon.com.
Great stuff. Okay. Well, I'm David Bain. I'm head of growth for Analytics SEO, and you can also catch me interviewing online marketing gurus over at digitalmarketingradio.com. So if you're watching this show as a recording, remember to watch the next episode live. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com and sign up to watch the next show in real time. But for those of you watching live, thank you so much. It was great to get some tweets from you as well. And remember to continue sharing your thoughts using the hashtag TWIO on Twitter. So it's just the 4 letters TWIO. So until next time, have a fabulous weekend. Thank you all for joining us, and adios. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks. Likewise.